it, boss!
Hello! Today I'm going to be showing you how to get even more mileage out of your old boys kit. We're going to be making some characters. In the past I've alluded to how the old boys kit is kind of the Pandora's box for kit bashing. Because you get one more model in the box than is required to make a unit, and because it's so rich in spare parts and decorations, you can really go to town on making your own freaky little guy. To really make the characters pop though, you need one secret ingredient, the help of another kit. Rundherd and Gretchen. I think this combination of old boys and grots is the perfect combo to start your collection. You get to play around and practice with assembly on a bunch of simple and characterful models, you get to muck about with customization, and at the end of it all you get a pair of units that will be thematic and useful additions to every army list you make until the end of time. This magical 11th boy is a perfect gateway to kit bashing your first Orks character. Today we'll be making 3 different characters, the Weird Boy, the Pain Boy, and the Mech.
The secret sauce that brings all 3 of these characters to life is the Rundherd's staff weapon. Now, the rest of the Rundherd himself is pretty neat. You get a pair of unique heads and a different looking torso, but what we're really here for is this big stick and its 2 attachments. In fact, if you wanted to take all of these parts for characters, you could. An orc from the Boyz kit with a slugger in one hand and a whip or a squighound in the other would be a perfectly acceptable Rundherd if you're playing WYSIWYG. Let's start with the Weird Boy, who's going to be using the staff itself. A Weird Boy is an orc psyker, basically a wizard, who channels the unstable energy of the Wa shared among all orcs. In-game, he can teleport a squad of boys around the table and fire off a laser beam that can explode enemy characters' brains, if he doesn't explode his own first. The Weird Boy is an especially good kit bash project because the actual model sucks. It's ass. It's a fine cast sculpt with bulky chains and weird faces and hard to paint posing. It just sucks. There are probably more proxied Age of Sigmar shamans and homemade kit bashers than official Weird Boys in collections around the world, I would guess. I've already done this kit bash before. Here's my own Weird Boy, Edbanger Scabgog. His body and head come from the Rundherd kit, and I've given him the staff topped with the electric prod. This arm comes from the Boyz kit. It's the open hand that holds underneath a shooter barrel. And this skull on his totem pole comes from the Boyz kit as well. These 2 metal masks come from the Death Dread kit. And on top of his head, I've used Milliput to try and sculpt the folds of an exposed brain like on the official model. This is one of the 2 kinds of archetypes of Weird Boy that you often see described in fiction and built-in kit bashers. The miserable schlub with a permanent headache who wants to be as far away from the noise of his warband as possible. For this video, let's build the other archetype, our Warped, an insane Weird Boy addicted to the exhilarating rush of psychic destruction. Let's start by choosing a pair of legs that has 1 heel off the ground. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. And a torso that you think looks appropriate. I'm going to choose this one with the mismatched armor plates on the chest. Next, grab a head that looks clinically insane. I'm going with this one with the screaming mouth and the missing eye. This top knot with the skull attached is also really good, but I just hate tassels on my orcs in general, so I'm going to clip it off. Now let's turn this big stick into a Weird Boy staff. If you aren't saving it for something else, the electric prod on top works just fine, but we're going to be using it for someone else later. Instead, we're going to make something of a totem pole. You could use the blast shield from the rocket launcher kit that kind of looks like a big mask, but I'm going to be using the 2 boss poles. If we put together this top half of the skull with this lower jaw, then we have a big spooky bone-chewing face, complete with another skull dangling off of the bottom. For the other arm, we can do a few things. I like to use the open shooter barrel hand for this, and you can put it in a few different positions. Some people like to put it in front of the face, as if he's channeling a big power vomit attack. Other people might like to put the severed head or the decorative orc skull in his hand. On my other Weird Boy Scabgog, I've used a little bit of Milliput to fill the gap and tilted it straight outwards. For this Weird Boy, I'm going to have him fling his open hand way above his head in some kind of mad spellcasting gesture. Another option that you could explore is taking the stick bomb arm and using the skull to top it and making your own kind of little horrible magic wand. Since skulls and heads are the name of the game here, I'm going to give him this orc skull as a hat, and I'm going to attach this severed head to his belt. Maybe this is his imaginary friend that he talks to during his madness. Now we're going to attach him to his base, leaning back on that raised heel, so it looks like he's performing some kind of wild dance. If you plan on using this in-game, make sure you use a 40mm base for your Weird Boy, rather than one of the 32mm bases that comes in the Boyz kit. And there we go! Our Weird Boy Warphead. Let's give him a name, something like Zogbarf.
For Gork and Mork!
Next, the Pain Boy. Pain Boys are Orks surgeons and doctors who stitch their comrades back together and fit them out with bionic augmentations. In-game, Pain Boys make the unit they lead more resistant to damage, and they can stitch a few lads back together once per game. They can also dish out some decent damage themselves with their surgical claw and their toxic syringe attack. The official Pain Boy model is great, but it's not uncommon for an army to take multiple copies, so having some unique looking alternatives is always nice. For the body, you could use the larger boss knob torso that comes in this set. Pain Boys are known to experiment on themselves and add additional muscles all the time. Instead, I'll be using this normal sized torso with all the belts, and this pair of legs with a scrap of loincloth that we can fashion into some kind of messy apron. For the Pain Boy, you have lots of choices for heads. Anything with a scar or missing eyes is nice, as well as these two grim but silly heads from the Rundherd kit. These heads with the bionic eyes are really nice too, since Pain Boys are known to give themselves lots of implants as well. To differentiate my oddboyz from my knobs, I like to clip the horns off of this head. So what you have left are these big, chunky, circular metal parts that kind of look like the bolts that go through a cartoon Frankenstein's monster's head. I'm going to use this screaming face with the cowl from the Rundherd kit. Now for the weapons. The official Pain Boy is equipped with a syringe gun and a power claw. There's a power claw in the Boyz kit for the boss knob, but it's not a very Pain Boy looking claw, is it? Doesn't really look like a medical tool, even for orcs. Instead, let's sever an orc hand and use the man catcher head from the Rundherd and attach it to the severed wrist. This makes a kind of horrible looking pair of spiky forceps. I think this looks like an orc's medical tool. Now the syringe is a little trickier, and I don't like what I've come up with very much, but I wasn't able to think of anything better. If you have a better idea for how to do this using only parts from this kit, please let me know in the comments. We're going to take one of these grot or orc heads with the pointy fur-lined helmet and carefully remove the spike. Now we're going to attach it to the end of one of these sluggers under the barrel so it kind of looks like a syringe primed in the gun, ready to stick someone. I'm also going to add this scope on top that works a bit like a magnifying glass. I'd like to imagine that the Pain Boy doesn't have any goggles, and so when he needs to look at something closely, he just points the gun at his patient. Again, this isn't a perfect solution, but it's the best I've been able to think of using only these two kits. Despite being quite tall for an orc, the Pain Boy model only comes on a 32mm base, so let's slap him down on any of our bases, and the dock is ready to operate.
Who's ready for surgery?
Finally, the mech. Mechs, or Mech Boys, are the engineers and scientists of Greenskin Society. They build, maintain, and pimp out orc weapons and vehicles, and they're also in charge of salvaging and repurposing vehicles and weapons from other factions. In games, mechs can leave infantry to give them a minor shooting buff, but more often you'll see them skulking around big vehicles to repair them and tune up their guns. The official mech model is really great as well, but it's starting to look a little bit old and it can be hard to find in stock. Now, I have already built 5 mechs before. 3 for my own army, and 2 for commission. I hope you'll forgive me if I don't use my parts on making a 6th. Instead, I'll be showing you footage and photos of the ones I've already built using parts from these 2 boxes. You can use just about any torso and legs for mechs. I generally think of them as not being particularly spiky, so I use something with flat armor panels usually, and a pair of legs that have a flat-footed stance. You can also use the torso meant for the heavy weapon boy and strap on a backpack full of bullets. This orc here has one with a grot sticking out the top that comes from the looter's kit, but otherwise it's identical to the one that comes in the Boyz kit. For heads, the 2 helmeted heads with bionic eyes are slam dunks, but you could also use any of the heads that have bullets hanging off of them as decorations. Daka is the name of the game here. Time for the weapons. Mechs are equipped with either a kill saw or a wrench, and a custom mega slugger, which is an unstable energy pistol. To make the slugger, this is where we'll use the electric prod. Remove the regular barrel of the slugger and attach this ridiculous gizmo to the end. You might need to clip down some of the machinery near the base of the Tesla coil or cut off the little battery at the end of the cable to get it to fit. Don't be afraid to bend it around and get it in a good spot. So with our Mega Slugger done, let's tackle our melee options. First, the kill saw. These chain-bladed choppers from the Boyz kit are perfect. First is the classic amputated orc limb replaced with a buzzsaw trick. Snip off an arm at the wrist, remove the chainsaw from its hilt, and slap them together. Nice and simple. The other method makes an underslung saw that keeps your Mech Boy's arm intact, and looks for a bulkier weapon. Cut out 2 chainsaws and glue them side by side. Then, using the hilt as a kind of grip, leave the saws glued underneath the arm so it looks like it's a kind of underslung weapon that you would swing around at the elbow. Now the wrench is dead simple. Take this axe, then cut off the axe blade. Now it's a wrench. You can snip off the end and rotate it around if you care, or you could leave it as is. You can also use this big chopper from the knob. If you cut around these little perforated metal plates, you'll be left with a perfect cartoony wrench shape. You can glue it onto a separate arm if you're a bit worried about mismatched arm sizes like I am, or if you're using a knob-sized mech, leave it as is. Stick him on a 32mm base, and he's all tooled up and ready for maintenance.
Alright, let me get out more tools then.
And just like that, we're all done. 3 super simple kitbashes for Orks models that have a home in any army, using nothing but things that even the newest collector should have on hand. All of these pieces are going to have great utility throughout your collection, and they're great chances to practice your painting on characters as well, going in on the specifics of details and highlights, and also trying out colours of skin tone or armour that don't need to have cohesion with another unit. I hope this video has helped to inspire you to make some characters of your own. That's all for today. Bye for now. Happy Orktober!
Sod off!